He is 11 years old, thin as a fence post. His glasses are too large for his face, and he pushes them up with one finger as he walks, not looking where he's going, but reading. A folded newspaper tucked under one arm, a brown paper bag in the other. He finds his maple tree the way a sailor finds the North Star, without thinking, because it's just always there. He sits down, smooths his trousers, opens his lunch bag, peanut butter sandwich, a bruised apple, and a small bottle of Coca-Cola that he pulls out last, gently, carefully, the way another child might cradle something precious. He takes one sip. Then he opens his notebook. The notebook is full of numbers, columns and columns of them, prices, quantities, margins. He is calculating how many bottles of Coca-Cola he bought wholesale for a quarter, sold for a nickel each, and what his profit was per bottle, per week, per year, compounded over 10 years. He is 11 years old, and he's already thinking in decades. A group of boys runs past. One of them shouts, "Boy," from across the yard. "Hey, Buffett, you eating alone again? What a loser." The boy doesn't look up. He takes another sip of Coca-Cola and writes a number down. Then, very quietly, to no one, to himself, to the wind, he says, "Someday I'm going to own the company that makes this." Warren Edward Buffett is born into this world, eyes already open, blinking at the light as if making calculations. His father, Howard Buffett, is a stockbroker, which means in 1930, he is a man who sells hope in a city that has run out of it. Howard is tall, honest to the point of discomfort, and deeply principled. He shakes every hand as if he means it. He looks every man in the eye. He would rather lose money than lose integrity. He loses both. "Leela, Howard, eat something." "Howard, the bank closed today, Union State." Layla stops washing the plate. She sets it down very carefully. The silence in the room becomes a third person. "Leela, everything?" "Howard, everything." From the doorway, a small figure watches. Warren is 1 year old, but he's already watching the adults in the room the way a scientist watches an experiment, with absolute, wordless attention. Howard puts his head in his hands. His shoulders shake once, then he controls it. He lifts his head. He sees Warren in the doorway, and he does something remarkable. He smiles. "Howard, come here, son." Warren toddles across the kitchen floor, and Howard scoops him up and holds him so tightly that Warren makes a small, surprised noise. "Howard, you're going to be just fine. You hear me? Whatever happens in this world, you are going to be just fine." He stands on the porch of a neighbor's house on a summer afternoon. In his hands, a cardboard tray. On the tray, 6 packs of Wrigley's chewing gum. He bought them wholesale, 5 sticks for a nickel. He is selling them 1 stick at a time, 2 cents per stick. Neighbor woman, "Honey, I'll just take the whole pack." Young Warren, "I'm sorry, ma'am. I only sell individual sticks." Neighbor woman, "Why?" Young Warren, "Because the margin is better." The woman stares at him. She buys 2 sticks. He notes it in his book. By the time he is 10, he has already sold chewing gum, Coca-Cola bottles, and magazines door to door. He has mapped the best neighborhoods. He knows which streets have the most foot traffic on Saturday mornings. He knows which houses have dogs and which ones don't. He adjusts his route accordingly. His grandfather pays him to pick up aluminum cans after the family picnic. He pays his cousin double what the cans are worth to do the picking up, pockets the difference, and stands there supervising. He is 9 years old, and he has discovered the concept of leverage. He goes home, climbs up to his bedroom, and writes on the wall above his bed in pencil, "Young Warren. By the time I am 35, I will be a millionaire. And if I am not, I will jump off the tallest building in Omaha. His sister Doris reads it the next morning. She tells their mother. Layla comes upstairs and reads it. Leela. Warren Edward Buffett, you will do no such thing. Young Warren. Which part? She erases the last sentence and leaves the rest. For months before his 11th birthday, Warren has been doing something that no one else in his household is doing, and that very few adults in Omaha are doing with any real discipline. Every morning, before school, he opens the financial pages of the newspaper and writes down the closing price of a single stock in a small green notebook. The stock is called City Service Preferred. He has been watching it for weeks, tracking its movement with the patience of someone who is not in a hurry, who is waiting for a moment he has already decided upon in advance. He studies the price the way a hunter watches a field, steadily, without impatience, without letting the watching become a distraction from the decision. He has saved $114. It is every cent he has accumulated from years of gum selling, bottle collecting, golf ball retrieval, magazine subscriptions, and shoe shining at the racetrack. He carries it to his father's brokerage office on a Tuesday morning in March, places it on the desk in a worn envelope, and purchases 3 shares of City Service Preferred at $38.25 per share. His father executes the trade without much ceremony. Warren walks back to school with his hands in his pockets and his mind already somewhere ahead of where his feet are going. 3 weeks later, the stock drops. It falls first to $27 per share, then lower, moving in the wrong direction with a slow indifference to what Warren had expected. Every morning, he opens the paper and finds a smaller number than the morning before. He eats his lunch under his maple tree and stares at his notebook and feels something new settling into his chest. A cold, nauseating, wordless weight that he has never carried before. He doesn't tell his sister. He doesn't tell his mother. He sits with it alone under the tree the way he sits with most things, and he thinks. The stock reaches $25 per share. Warren sells. He's lost money, not a fortune, but a real and painful amount given what it cost him to save it. He walks home that afternoon feeling the particular heaviness of a decision that cannot be undone. He sits under his maple tree for a very long time. He stares at the branches and the sky beyond them. An hour passes, then 2. 2 weeks after he sells, City Service Preferred rises to $200 per share. He reads the number in the newspaper. He reads it again, slowly, in case the first reading was a mistake. It is not a mistake. The stock he sold at $25 is now worth $200. He sets the paper down on the kitchen table and walks outside and sits under his tree and stares at the sky for so long that his mother comes to find him and asks if he is unwell. He tells her he's not unwell. He tells her he made a mistake. When she asks what happened, he gives her the answer that he will carry as a lesson for the next 80 years of his life. He panicked, and panic is expensive. He goes upstairs to his room and opens his green notebook and writes it down in capital letters on a blank page all by itself. Not as a reminder, but as a verdict. He made a decision based on fear rather than on calculation, and the market punished him for it immediately and without mercy. The stock did not know he was afraid. The stock did not care. The market has no sympathy for impatience and no patience for panic. He is 11 years old, and he has just received the most important financial education of his life, and it has cost him considerably less than any business school would charge him for the same lesson years later. By the time Warren Buffett is 14 years old, he is managing a newspaper delivery operation of striking efficiency. He runs 2 simultaneous routes, has memorized the precise walking time between every house on each street, and calculates his income per hour the way an engineer calculates load-bearing figures. With exactness, without sentiment, and with constant attention to whether the numbers can be improved. He earns more money each month than most of the teachers who stand at the front of his classrooms. He files his own tax returns. He has claimed his wristwatch as a business expense. But there is something else happening to Warren Buffett during these years, something that has nothing to do with numbers and that cannot be solved by calculation. It lives in his throat and his chest and the palms of his hands. It surfaces whenever he is required to enter a room full of people he does not know, whenever he is expected to speak out loud in front of an audience, whenever the social expectations of the world require him to perform rather than simply think. Warren Buffett, who can hold an entire annual report in his memory and recite dividend yields the way other boys recite baseball statistics, is desperately, almost physically, unable to function in ordinary social situations. He is not strange or unpleasant. People who know him find him warm and funny in the easy quiet of one-on-one conversation. But put him in front of a crowd, point a spotlight at him, and he freezes with a thoroughness that goes far beyond shyness into something closer to complete system failure. In 1947, when Warren is 17, his school holds a mandatory public speaking competition for the senior class. He knows about it 3 months in advance. He does not sleep properly for 3 weeks before it happens. On the day of the event, he sits backstage in a folding chair while his classmates take their turns at the microphone, each one walking through the curtain at the side of the stage and returning a few minutes later looking relieved or embarrassed or both. When his name is called, Warren stands up. His legs feel like something has been poured into them that should not be there. He walks to the curtain. He puts his hand on it. He stops. For 15 full seconds, which is a very long time when a gymnasium full of students is waiting on the other side of a piece of fabric, Warren Buffett stands completely motionless, with his hand pressed against the curtain, unable to make himself move through it. Then he does. He walks through and delivers his speech with his hands shaking and his words arriving faster than his thoughts, and his voice pitched too high by the adrenaline he cannot control. He finishes 3 minutes early because his mouth runs ahead of his brain and he runs out of material before the allotted time is up. He walks back through the curtain and sits down and tells his friend beside him that it was the worst experience of his life. A statement he means with complete sincerity, and which his friend finds slightly absurd given that Warren has, in the same year, been managing newspaper routes, calculating tax returns, and building what is by any measure a small but real business enterprise. The business has never frightened him. The curtain nearly breaks him. Several years later, Warren discovers a Dale Carnegie public speaking course and enrolls himself in it. On the first day, he drives to the building, parks the car in the car park outside, turns the engine off, and sits behind the steering wheel for 45 minutes without getting out. Then he starts the car and drives home. He does this 3 times. He drives to the building, sits in the car, and drives away without ever making it through the front door. On the 4th attempt, before he gets out of the car, before he can make another decision that involves staying in it, he reaches into his coat pocket, takes out every dollar he has brought with him, and walks directly to the registration desk and pays for the entire course in cash, in full, before he gives himself the chance to change his mind. The logic is simple and ruthless. if the money is already spent. Leaving is no longer a rational option. He cannot afford to waste what he has already paid. He sits in the car for another 20 minutes after paying. Then he goes inside. He completes the course. He does not become a natural speaker. Natural speakers are made from a certain kind of ease with other people that Warren will never entirely possess. But he becomes a capable one. And eventually, through decades of practice, a genuinely compelling one. The diploma from that Dale Carnegie course hangs on the wall of his office for the rest of his career. Not his Columbia degree, not his University of Nebraska diploma. The Dale Carnegie certificate, framed and hung in a place of honor, because he knows better than anyone which victory cost him the most and which one he had the fewest natural gifts for achieving. In the winter of 1950, Warren Buffett boards a train to Chicago with a briefcase full of preparation and the absolute certainty that he is going to be admitted to Harvard Business School. He is 19 years old. He has already made real money. He has read every finance book in the Omaha Public Library, some of them twice, some of them more. And he has not merely read them, but absorbed them, argued with them, tested their conclusions against actual investment decisions, and found most of those conclusions to hold. He arrives at the hotel room where Harvard is conducting its admissions interviews and sits down across from a man in a gray suit and begins to explain himself. The interview lasts 10 minutes. Not 10 minutes in the compressed way that interviews sometimes feel short in retrospect. 10 real minutes. The kind that can be counted and measured and found wanting. The interviewer makes a mark on his notepad. He thanks Warren for his time. Warren leaves the hotel and steps into the cold Chicago winter, briefcase in hand. Harvard has just rejected him. 19, they decided, was too young. Sitting alone at the train station, he thinks. On the ride back to Omaha, he opens his briefcase and pulls out a list of finance professors at Columbia University. 2 names stop him: Benjamin Graham and David Dodd, the authors of Security Analysis, the book that shaped his thinking. He had assumed they were figures of the past. Instead, they are alive and teaching. On that moving train, he writes to Columbia. They accept him. What felt like rejection becomes redirection. At Columbia, Graham teaches the difference between price and value, a lesson that cements Warren's philosophy forever. Warren excels, earns rare praise, and later asks to work for Graham. He's declined, returns to Omaha, but keeps writing letters. Patient, persistent. Back home, he meets Susan Thompson, the woman who balances his intensity with warmth. They marry in 1952. 2 years later, Graham finally calls with a job offer in New York. Warren works relentlessly, absorbing not just strategy, but discipline. In 1956, when Graham retires, Warren returns to Omaha and starts his own partnership from his living room with $105,000 from family and friends. He invests his own money alongside theirs and builds trust through performance. Within years, the returns multiply. He lives simply, focused not on spending money, but compounding it. A Harvard rejection in a Chicago winter quietly led him to the teacher and the path that changed everything at the textile mill in New Bedford, Massachusetts, is old in the way that industries get old when the world has changed around them and they have not changed with it. The machines are heavy and worn, the floors dark with decades of use, the air thick with wool fiber and machine oil. It smells like a place that was once enormously important and is now holding on with the stubborn, dignified persistence of something that does not know yet how to stop. The workers who move through it have the faces of people whose fathers worked in the same building, whose children they are quietly hoping will find work somewhere else. Warren walks through it slowly, hands in his pockets, looking at everything. He is not looking at it the way a businessman looks at an asset he is considering purchasing. He is looking at it the way he looks at everything. He asks questions of the manager walking beside him. Not about the textile business and its prospects, which he already knows to be poor, but about the liquidation value of the equipment, the book value of the inventory, the land and buildings and everything inside them if the whole operation were to be wound down and sold off piece by piece. When the manager gives him the answer, Warren nods. The answer is what he expected. The liquidation value is higher than the price at which the stock is currently trading. He buys a controlling stake. Everyone who hears about it tells him it is a mistake. The textile industry in New England is dying. Everyone knows this. Every analyst who covers the sector, every competitor who has already begun moving operations overseas. The margins are shrinking to nothing. American factories cannot compete with the labor costs of foreign manufacturers. They are right about all of this. Warren will eventually acknowledge, in the characteristically direct and self-critical way he acknowledges his errors, that acquiring Berkshire Hathaway was the worst single investment decision he made in his career, and that the costs of that mistake, compounded over the decades he would spend trying to extract value from a fundamentally uncompetitive business, were staggering. But they are not seeing what he is seeing, because they are looking at the textile mill, and he is looking past it. He is looking at the cash the business generates. Even a declining business generates cash, and cash is fungible. Cash can be sent anywhere. And he is thinking about what that cash can become if it is redirected with patience and precision into better businesses. He is looking at the name on the side of the building, Berkshire Hathaway. He is turning it over in his mind, feeling its weight, understanding that a name is not nothing, that a structure is not nothing, that what he is purchasing is not only the looms and the inventory and the building, but a vehicle, a container, something that can be filled with an entirely different content than the one currently inside it. Late one evening, Warren Buffett writes Berkshire Hathaway's new name and asks, "What could this become?" He dreams of businesses with lasting value, circling two guiding words: float, patience. By 1977, the Omaha house is quiet. The children have grown, and Susie, who quietly managed the life around Warren, asks herself, "Who am I outside of being a wife and mother?" She decides to pursue her dream of singing in San Francisco. Warren listens, accepts, and watches her leave, feeling a loss no spreadsheet could measure. In September 2008, Lehman Brothers collapses, shaking the global financial system. While others panic, Warren calls Charlie Munger and chooses to invest billions personally. His decades of patience and discipline allow him to act where fear rules others, eventually earning over $10 billion from crisis-era investments. In 2004, Susie dies after battling cancer. Warren grieves openly, recognizing that she made him human, opening doors, creating warmth, shaping his life in ways no money or logic ever could. In 2006, he announces a $37 billion donation to the Gates Foundation, applying the same principle he uses in investing. Put resources where they will do the most good. Today, at 93, Warren lives modestly, reads for hours daily, and drives himself to work. His legacy is not just wealth, but the compounding of patience, honesty, character, and relationships over decades. The snowball he started rolling as a boy under a maple tree keeps moving, Somewhere right now, there's a child being laughed at for being too serious, too quiet, too fixated on something that the people around them cannot yet see the point of. There is a person standing in front of a closed door that has just been shut in their face, and they do not know yet. They cannot possibly know yet that this closed door is the best thing that has ever happened to them, because it is pointing them toward the room where the person who will change their life is waiting. There is someone sitting in a car park outside the building they are too afraid to walk into. With the engine running and a very good reason to simply drive home and try again another day. There is someone who sold too early and watched the thing they sold triple in value and is now writing themselves off as someone who is simply not made for this. There is someone who panicked when they should have waited and is sitting under their own version of a maple tree, staring at the sky, carrying the specific weight of a decision that cannot be undone, but can absolutely be learned from. Warren Buffett did all of those things. He sat in that car park. He stood at that curtain. He watched city service rise to $200 after he sold it at $25. He was told no by an institution that had no idea who he was. He sat in a kitchen on a morning when the woman who kept him human drove away in a taxi, and he tried to read a spreadsheet. And for the first time in his life, the numbers did not help. And then he kept going. Not because he was immune to failure or fear or loss. The record is very clear that he was not. But because he understood something about time and compounding that most people understand intellectually and almost no one internalizes completely. That the returns do not come from the single brilliant decision. They come from the 1,000 ordinary decisions made well over a long enough period without stopping. They come from reading the next annual report after the last one broke your heart. They come from walking through the curtain on the day you are most afraid to. The maple tree is still there. The notebook is still open. The question is only whether you will sit down and start writing the numbers.